Yeah, that looks gorgeous. Walking into that, oh yeah, that's very gorgeous. All right, suggestion for me. It's been a while since I've done a suggestion to France.
Ribbed vaults and flying buttresses flourished in France in the 13th century, in a period of
I was wondering
architecture
why
known
that
as
was
High
so
Gothic, where the
low.
construction of cathedrals reached an exceptional level of refinement and height. Around 1230, there was a reaction against the huge scale of High Gothic cathedrals, and architects began to use the same structural approach on smaller scaled buildings, which brought a new sense of intimacy and an increased complexity of detail now intended to be appreciated at close quarters. This new style was later known as rayonnant Gothic. The word rayonnant is French for radiant, and this name is due to the rays of light that
Bro, it's insane to me how like so much French words are in the English language. And stay with me here for a second, okay? I say this because I know the whole history of why that came to be, all that fun stuff. But it's funny because due to the fact that French has become, used to be like the lingua franca of Europe for a while, and French has had such a impact on Europe that there are so many French words in so many languages, right? I'm bringing this up because I said this before, I am learning Russian, and the amount of French words that are in Russian is stunning to me. And due to the fact that English also has so much French words, it's so much more easier learning these words in Russian because they're not even Russian, they're French words. So I'm like, you see what I'm saying here? And I'm saying this because this right here, rayonnant and radiant, at first I didn't even realize that this was cognate here. And that's the thing about these words, is that there are so many of these type of words here, but you have to pay really close attention and accent as well to it. So I'm just pointing that out. Let's continue.
Radiate through the windows. The nature of the style made it ideal for palace chapels, of which the most spectacular example is the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. Built between 1242 and 1248, the Sainte-Chapelle was commissioned by King Louis IX to house the relics of the Passion which he had acquired from the Emperor of Constantinople. Among them, the crown of thorns and a fragment of the true cross.
I like that. I like this right here. This is so freaking cool to look at. Also, a fragment of the true cross. That's...
These relics cost him twice as much as the construction of the building, and he brought them to France in 1238. The Ile de la Cité, the heart of the city of Paris since antiquity, was dominated by Notre Dame Cathedral on the east, and on the west by the Palais de la Cité, the royal residence of the kings of France in the Middle Ages, making the island the seat of political and religious power. The chapel was built attached to the Palais de la Cité as a symbol of the king's piety and authority. So as you approach the building, standing within a small courtyard inside the palace, you'll notice its structure is slightly different than the larger cathedrals. In Gothic cathedrals, you have flying buttresses to hold the structure of the arches. But because this building is so small, flying buttresses would prevent light from passing through the windows. And the main objective of Gothic architecture is to get as much light as possible inside the building. So in order to be able to have such small buttresses that could support the thrust of the vaults, the architect of the Sainte-Chapelle designed a system of internal iron rods that encircle the building, linking the buttresses horizontally.
It's mad to me how Gothic architecture would the same fellow who suggested me to react to this, actually, he explained to me that Gothic architecture is just Originally, it was just called like French architecture, which was news to me. I knew about Gothic architecture, but I never knew like the origins of Gothic architecture and like where it came from. I always used to think that Gothic architecture was like this Western European thing, but I didn't know who specifically created it. You know, and it's funny because this architecture, like when you think of Western Europe, you think of Gothic architecture, or at least I do, right? Like, I know there's other types of architectures, but I think, like, imagining Europe without Gothic architecture, that's just weird, right? That's just really weird.
These rods are concealed in the masonry and pass across the windows, also serving as the framework that supports the glass. Thanks to this ingenious dematerialization of the structure, and to the wondrous properties of medieval stained glass,
Bro, I love
the interior
this.
of the Sainte-Chapelle has no equal, as the chapel is flooded with colorful rays of light that enrich the spiritual.
Whoa, that's amazing, man. Look at that. That's actually so cool. And it's all natural too. It's not like artificial lights, you know?
The arrangement of the pinnacles and other elements such as the balustrade, the gargoyles, and the exterior tracery mimic the shape of a reliquary reflecting the building's purpose. But they also mimic the shape of a medieval crown with its jewels and ornaments. This resemblance to a crown could be interpreted as a symbolic homage to the relic it was built to enshrine, reinforcing its spiritual and sacred significance. Making the total height of the building over 75 meters, the spire is built of cedar wood and covered with lead for weather resistance.
Question, right? Because I noticed this with Notre Dame as well. Why do they make the spire out of wood? Why don't they make the spire out of stone? Would it like cause like too much weight on the building or what? It's a question that I've wondered that I don't think I ever asked, or maybe I had that answer, but I forgot about it.
Statues of saints, gargoyles, and ornate carvings highlight the craftsmanship and the attention to detail. The spire not only accentuates the verticality of the building, making it visible from the distance, but also serves as a symbolic element that stretches towards the heavens.
That's cool. I like that idea. That's sick. That's really sick. Stretching towards the heavens. That's actually mad.
The Sainte-Chapelle has 2 levels. In the ground floor, there is a room with a low ceiling that was a chapel for the servants of the royal palace, while the spacious upper chapel was used by the royal family and the court. The ground chapel is accessed from the courtyard, and the upper chapel is accessed from the palace. From the main facade, you can appreciate the double height of the upper chapel. The rose window of the Sainte-Chapelle was built in the 15th century, using a later style of Gothic architecture known as flamboyant, which is French for flaming, and it was called
Flaming? What? Flamboyant has a... I think it's the same word. I think, yeah, it's the same word in English. It's just that the way it's used is so much more different. Flamboyant. Flamboyant. When I hear flamboyant, I think of someone who's like, I don't know. It's like more of a way to describe someone's personality and style and the, you know, his demeanor, the way how he like carries himself. Like he's such a flamboyant person, you know. Usually meaning that, well, metaphorically speaking, yeah. Metaphorically speaking, yeah, it could, yeah. It technically does still mean flaming, metaphorically speaking, if we're thinking about the English mindset. But I didn't know that flamboyant was this goes back to what I was saying actually early in the video, there's so much of these French words that you really have to pay close attention to it, or you miss it. Although flamboyant, it's just I didn't know that English directly took that word like piece by piece. I know there's flame, flames of a building. But flamboyant, what the heck? I didn't know flames come from flamboyant. Okay,
All that
wow.
because you can see how the stone tracery has curves forming flame-like shapes. Other elements from the exterior are also from the 15th century, such as the two small spire on top of the two towers on each side of the main facade, both decorated with fleurs de lis beneath sculpted crowns of thorns. As you enter the ground chapel, you'll notice the polychromy on the interior. Usually Gothic architecture is not colored, but the walls, columns, and traceries of the Sainte-Chapelle are completely painted with bright colors such as gold, red, and green. And the vaults are painted of royal blue with fleurs de lis. The columns inside alternate between red and blue, and each represent the two royal families from which the king, Louis IX, descended. The blue columns with the fleurs de lis represent the Capetian dynasty through his father, and the red columns with the golden castle represent the kingdom of Castile in Spain through his mother.
What if I told you there was...
Oops. Press on pause and pause.
And at the end of the chapel, in the center you'll see a statue of Louis IX, known also as King Saint Louis. This chapel is very compact as it has columns in the middle of the space, and the ceilings are low, giving a cave-like effect thanks to how close you can see the vaults.
Ooh,
As I said,
imagine
originally
seeing
you would
that in
enter
person.
each chapel through the central portal on each floor, but the way you access the upper chapel now as you visit the Sainte-Chapelle is through the spiral staircases on the sides after visiting the ground floor chapel. So after being compacted in the lower chapel, and then compacted even more as you climb up the narrow stairs, you finally get to the upper chapel that gives you an amazing expansion of light and space.
Yeah, that looks gorgeous. Walking into that, oh yeah. That's very gorgeous.
The structure conformed of thin buttresses. There are almost no walls inside. The whole space is contained by 670 square meters of stained glass. Most of the glass panels are original, and they depict 1,113 scenes from the Bible.
What the heck? Damn, that's a lot.
The three central windows of the apse represent scenes of the life of Jesus, taken from the New Testament. All the windows on the north and south sides, except for the last one on the south corner, represent scenes from the Old Testament, such as the creation or scenes from the life of Moses. The window on the corner depicts the history of the relics that were held in the chapel, presenting King Louis IX as the legitimate The most fascinating thing about the scenes depicted in the windows is that, although they are biblical scenes from antiquity, the characters are depicted as medieval people, wearing medieval clothes and armor, and walking in medieval towns surrounded by medieval castles. Kings from antiquity wearing medieval crowns and ancient priests wearing medieval clothes. These biblical scenes are presented through a medieval lens, because artists from the Middle Ages could only draw upon their contemporary concept of king, attire, and architecture. The plan of the chapel has 33 meters in length and 10.5 meters in width, and the vaults reach a height of 20.5 meters. A small space for a Gothic building, yet it retains that sense of verticality, characteristic of Gothic architecture. The bottom of the walls have a place for the court members to sit, and in the third traverse of the chapel, there's a niche carved in each side of the walls, each decorated with archivolts and sculpture angels and richly painted. These spaces were for the king and queen to sit during ceremonies. At the end of the chapel lies the altar.
Look at that. Whoa. Now this is grand. Holy hell, that is grand.
Which once held the 22 relics that King Louis IX had acquired. The Gothic altar is adorned with gilded elements and intricate carvings, and it serves as a focal point of the chapel's interior, drawing the eye upwards towards the stained glass windows and the vaulted ceiling. You can see that the vaults from the upper chapel are also painted blue, but instead of having painted fleurs-de-lis like the lower chapel, they have golden stars. This distinction in decoration visually represents the medieval belief in the divine right of kings, where the monarchy is seen as ruling under divine authority. The fleurs-de-lis in the lower chapel symbolize the monarchy's protection over its subjects, while the starry ceiling in the upper chapel symbolizes the heavens, emphasizing the royal family's proximity to God. Just outside the chapel in the top level, you can see the main portal through which the royal family and its court would access the chapel back in the Middle Ages. You can see the figure of Christ in the center of the tympanum. Next to him are two angels with the two main relics that the chapel held, the crown of thorns and the cross, and on the sides are Virgin Mary and John the Baptist. Below, the lintel shows Saint Michel weighing the souls of the dead, those sent to heaven on the left and the damned on the right.
It's kind of funny because... Wait, no. Okay, he's talking about our left. Okay, because I'm looking at this, I'm like, wait. Isn't the left usually like associated with like bad and evil in the Bible, if I'm not mistaken? And the right is usually associated with like cleanliness, holiness, and, you know, godliness, all that stuff, right? If I'm not mistaken, right? But then I like flip-flop in my head and I realized, wait, no, never mind.
On the lower walls, you see panels depicting biblical scenes. On the left, you have the creation, and on the right, Noah's Ark. Most of the portal was destroyed during the French Revolution, and it was remade by a French sculptor in the 19th century. Several parts of the Sainte-Chapelle were damaged during the Revolution, and in the 1840s, scholars, archaeologists, and architects restored the chapel to its medieval state, being as faithful as possible with the original drawings and descriptions that had survived. The most famous of these architects was Eugène Emmanuel Viollet-le-Duc, who, after working on the Sainte-Chapelle, dedicated his life to restore Gothic architecture, most notably the Cathedral of Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Middle Ages.
How the hell do French people pronounce their words, bro?
Jean de Jardin, a French writer, described the experience of entering the Sainte-Chapelle, which gives us a sense of what medieval people thought when entering these impressive Gothic churches.
It's hilarious though that these churches would make up like freaking like half of the entire French GDP back then. Just the build, bro.
Chapels, the Chapel of the King, most fittingly situated underneath the walls of the royal palace, is graced with the most firm and indissoluble structure of the most solid of the stones, the most select colors of paints, the precious gilding of the images, the decorous transparency of the glowing glass all around, the most beautiful ornaments of the altars, the wonderful virtues of the sanctuaries, the design of the reliquaries externally adorned with gleaming gems, and so great exaggeration of beauty is generously given to that house of prayer, that upon entering it, as if carried off to heaven, one would not without reason think has entered one of the most precious chambers of paradise.
Oh, I like that shot. Oh yeah, that was a good shot there. Oh, that was so nice. That was so nice there.
Enjoyed, please like this video, subscribe to
Oh my goodness, we have a French Giga chat. Oh my
my
gosh.
channel, and if you like Paris, there's
That was actually quite excellent. Look, man, if you're new to my channel and you like my reactions and what I have to say in my reactions, man, make sure that you comment down below. If you have any suggestions like this for me, if you have any suggestions on France, comment down below. You know, I actually do enjoy these France reactions. It's usually quite splendid, to be honest. I can't even lie with you. You know, consider becoming a channel member if you are active viewer of mine, and you have a lot of suggestions for me, because the main purpose of memberships are quicker like your suggestions will be done much more quicker because I have like a lot, like an insane amount of suggestions to do. And also priority reply to comments and a whole bunch of other perks which I explain in the membership video, which I will be linking in the comments down below, man. Turn the bell notifications on, man. You know what I mean? Again, check out my other France reactions on my channel. I have a lot of France reactions at this point, man. Thank you for watching. Special shout out to these 3 channel members right here. Thank you for your support. Your help and commitment gives me the motivation and drive to keep going with these videos, even if it's a bit